itself, it's just for seeding. So, when we get into the latter stages of the tournament, namely the bracket stage, the playoffs with the best of three, that's where it's really going to be very, very entertaining, I think. So it looks like Zero will be going for Sword here. So we will see those route differences here. And Habble, just like she did last race, will be going for Stick once again.
Can I get the rupee? Oh no.
Oh, did Habble miss the rupee? That's tough. That rupee there can be very interesting.
Yeah, not the start that Habble was hoping for, but I think it doesn't waste too much time, I guess, so...
Yeah, it seems that rupee, that elusive rupee that Habble missed is maybe caused a little bit of stress. I don't know, just a bonk there and equipping Stick not out of shop. I guess it was a little bit confusing because she had to go back and get that rupee, but just a few mistakes from Habble here. But I am confident she will make it up with some very, very clean gameplay for the rest of the run, as she's ahead here, as a matter of fact. Zero is just now entering the Lost Woods. And a very nice and clean quest escape from Habble. It's interesting how in most categories we see Link going across the bridge and staying on land for longer in this Zora's River segment, but with this route we see a lot of runners opting to go straight to the water.
Yeah, swimming is pretty fast at certain points of the stream, so... Interesting setup for that. It didn't end up working, but definitely interesting idea there. Really high up for the side up, but manages to make it work.
Yeah, Dan noting that the purpose of going into the water early there is for the rupees.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So that is definitely something worth noting. As Zero is now going into Kakariko, and Habble is now collecting Cocos. So both runners are around a similar spot. Habble is probably a decent bit ahead here, probably about 30 seconds. Maybe a little bit less than that, 20 to 30 seconds, somewhere around that. But again, like we've said sort of throughout this tournament, this Cocos segment, so much can happen, so many variables. It'll be really interesting to see how these runners line up in terms of timing once they get the bottle.
That Coco tempting Habble with opening the door there.
It's always tough.
Yeah. Opening that door would mean that all the Cocos reset their positions and she would have had to grab all of them over again, which would not have been good, so good job on the patience there to not collect the Coco. It's always so, like, this segment is such a meme, honestly. It is, like, an essential part of a majority of speedruns in this game, and it is also one of the most awkward, like, the most awkward segments to do really well. So,
yeah.
Seeing how different people handle it is always interesting. I think that Coco, hopefully it runs off to the right, but it looked like it might have gotten stuck there. on Habble's end. We will find out when she jumps here.
Someone who I really like to watch do Cuckos is Spittle. Because Spittle, you know, has just run so much like MST and all dungeons and just done this segment so many times. Like, I don't know. It's just interesting to watch how he does it and the very subtle like choices he makes that sort of make him a very like elite player at this segment. And
Yeah, a lot of people you can tell somebody's done a lot of Cuckos just by their general movement around Kakariko and like the timing of like the fat guy that runs up the stairs there, the carpenter. When you see that carpenter, like if you see that carpenter while you're running up, then you know that you've lost a little bit of time to rather Cuckos or just movement, and you know there's that on top of like if he's nowhere to be seen, like you've got a really good pace. So
that's a really good point that Dan just made. Actually, is like teaching Cuckos is hard. You kind of just have to like watch a bunch of runs and like watch how the people who have already done a lot of Cuckos do it, and then you just sort of apply what you've seen and you try to mimic the movement, and then you feel it out, and it's like, I don't know, it's just such a unique segment. I don't know, like there's segments like Gim, you know, in old Clippy Ganon, or like Corpse Push in a lot of runs, where those are very teachable tricks. You might want to argue that with Gim, maybe it's not, but especially with like Corpse Push. Bless you. Oh my goodness. Was that you, Dan?
that was Dan. I don't know
Holy
if that got
cow.
picked up on stream, but
Yes.
Habble getting
It
might have
definitely got
skipped first
picked
try.
up.
It did? Okay. Oh, okay,
Oh
cool.
no. Okay, alright. Dan just had a very emphatic sneeze in the Discord, so that's what we're reacting to.
Yeah, there might have been a bit of an explosion there too. You might have to check on Dan after this.
You're good. The other thing with teachable and shorter segments is that they're much easier to master. Whereas you have a segment like Cuckos where it's longer and it's not really teachable, and you have some runners doing slightly different things, so it's like, what do I do? And it's sort of, you have to grow into it as a runner.
Yeah, I mean that's something interesting to mention just in general, like the capability of like being able to do tricks. Like you can be a runner who can do tricks, but if you don't have good movement, that's what really separates you. Like, if any of you recall the name Pity or Pidicris, Pity used to run this game a long time ago, and I showed them a run of mine a while ago, and they're like, "You look really solid at being able to do all the hard tricks, but you suck at movement." And I was like, "Well, like, trying to figure out like, really like where does it come from?" But all the time loss is really just like the movement, and in having somebody like really point that out and show you that like you can do all of the stuff that makes the run like possible. But really narrowing down that movement is something that a lot of people struggle with, and it is probably like a really overlooked thing in this category is just general movement, because like we have to save as much time as we possibly can at any given time. Like there's no like, you know, one trick rules all here. Like, yeah, we have to do wrong warp and such, but movement is a big deal. Having really good strat and really good movement is a big deal. Like right there, we see a really clean B1 jump from Zeru, getting the perfect pause buffer and just getting right up there, getting the nut and ready to go.
Yeah, it is so important. And honestly, like I actually remember when you were teaching me a lot of this, or a lot of Defeat Ganon, you very much like stressed the movement aspects of where I could improve. And I think that was something that helped me a lot, because I didn't realize that like, oh, I'm losing like a second not rolling close enough to the wall here, or like you know, I don't know, not doing a side hop here, turning this way. And like I think that was really important for me as I was like sort of as I was getting better at the gim route and like starting to get closer to the top times. Like cuz I spent a lot of time like it's weird to say this, but I spent a lot of time like being new at Ocarina of Time. I spent like a lot of time doing actually like Kakariko route and like playing an emulator and stuff. And then like I had to make a decision sort of where it was like I can you know, I think every speedrunner gets to that point where it's like, well, like I'm pretty good at this. I like it. Like, do I push myself to go for a lofty goal? Like, you know, it's speedrunning's so interesting in terms of like goal setting and how
I
things
think it's
develop
anything.
too, you know?
I think it's anything competitive, really. Like, you know, I've seen it happen to me in other games as well, and just other things I've taken seriously in my life. Like, you know, I think it's Zero having to do a reset here with Goma. Luckily they saved, but they are going to die and reset the room so that they can get better manipulation with Goma, as Habble is doing wrong work. But yeah, back to my point. I think you know, in anything competitive, it becomes that part where like, hey, when do I want to start taking this more seriously, and like how do I want to approach doing that? So it really is something that you have to decide on. And you know, like Thunder mentioned, I remember watching Thunder roll to the Deku Tree, and Thunder
Oh
was just kind of
no,
rolling
I
all
wasn't.
over the
No, I
place.
wasn't. Come on,
Yeah,
come
you were
on.
rolling all over the place, and I was
I
like, yeah,
know.
so you want to roll very specifically. And he's like, you know, I didn't think about the importance of that, but it is those small little things
Yeah.
that you pick up, because it's not something that like, it's not something that is necessarily like taught. If you go look on a video like how to do Ocarina of Time any percent at the time back in the day, or I guess it would be more like how to, you know, do a certain kind of trick. Like, it tells you how to get the frames of the trick and know when you've got it right. But it doesn't tell you like that you need to have like a clean movement here so that you're not wasting any time, because all that time that you waste with movement, you're essentially losing that time from performing those harder tricks anyway, just by having sloppy movement. So if you can overall correct those mistakes, that's what really sets you apart.
Yeah, I mean it's so interesting too, because like I think um a lot of players who have reached that like high intermediate level and like want to compete with the best players, like they'll compare their runs, right? Like I certainly did that. Like, you know, you watch the best players to get better. Like it's like studying film and
Ooh,
sports.
Habble getting the up clip. That is a massive save. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that is
No, it's all
up
good.
clip is
They're
very difficult to get and to nail. So really good job on Habble there. So I think we should actually explain that real quick before we
go for
continue.
it.
Up clip is a interesting thing. So if you when you do insta clip, when you go into the corner and you target a frame or two late, I believe it's within a frame or two. It might even be just one frame, but you can save the clip through the wall if you hold up when you clip through the wall. And if you actually see Link clip through the wall, then I believe you're supposed to hold right, or you might just continue holding up or go back to neutral. I can't remember exactly, but holding up there when you've gone too far can actually clip Link through the wall still and save it. You hold full right, yeah, so okay, that's what I thought. So you hold full right after you get the up clip, and then it'll save the run at that point, because otherwise you have to do void warp, right? And nobody wants to do void warp.
Did Zeru just break stick?
Zero did just break stick. Very unfortunate.
There's been some really interesting stuff this race. I know we've been talking like a lot in general and not necessarily in the context of the race. There's been some really interesting stuff. I saw Zeru go for like a setup for the torch, like the torch jump slash that I've never seen before. They targeted the block and then started back walking and then did or I don't know if there was an S turn there, but it was a setup I've never seen before. It was interesting.
It might be something that they've just come up on the spot
Probably,
with.
but still, like it's cool to see all the different strides.
I think here, yeah, that works. Luckily enough, that like holding left there was definitely necessary. Unfortunately, it seems like Goma might be trolling Zeru again. This is really unfortunate, but luckily Zeru had the foresight to see if anything was to go wrong here that they should have collected more nuts, so that's very good. Yeah, it seems. Yeah, I would say the same. I think that typically what I see runners do for Goma Clip, at least that looks the best to me, is that always what I see is they run back, like they do one roll back and then they do ISG, because it manipulates Goma to move into a certain spot, and it also gives them time. So like Goma starts moving faster. Uh, and goes closer to at least the spot where you want. Like this spot right here looks a lot better. I mean, it still looks a little far to the right, but it does still work. Yeah, because you don't want Goma to be too close to the wall to your left, but you also don't want her to be too far either. But luckily this time around. Yeah, it looks like Habble is having a really good time.
This is really good. I think it's yeah. This might be N64 pace for world record. I'm not exactly sure what N64 world record is, to be honest. I think it's a low. She is having a little bit of a panic moment here, but
unfortunate.
once you get ISG,
Doesn't Josh have it?
Habble actually just recently took it.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I don't remember. I can check the time really quick. I think they posted it in the TV channel. Let me see.
Is it the low like low percent, or just like in general defeat Ganon?
Oh well, I guess the low. I'm confused now because that was low percent and there's the N64 world record. So I'm not. I don't remember exactly which one. So, but yeah, I'm not sure what the time is for N64. Yeah, unfortunately, a little bit of a sloppy Ganon to end the run, but overall, like a really, really solid run for Habble, and definitely a great run in terms of the group stage and in terms of the seeding.
I might be wrong on this, but I think this is the second fastest run.
I believe so. What
17:17, yeah, I believe our other fastest run was 17:26. So
GG's.
17:05 and then 17:26. So yeah, GG's to Habble for taking this race, and a really good run. Baylor.
17:05 is our fastest time.
It's 17:04, I think. Or 5. So 17:05, yeah. From Baker. Baylor.
Does anyone know, like, can anyone just post in the chat, respectively, like, what low percent world record is and what... Oh, no, Zeru, that's unfortunate. I'm just curious about the N64 record and the low percent record. $15.54. So low percent is slower. I guess that makes sense.
It's crazy to think that Baker has a 1539 on VC. That's insane.
Well, he's pretty good at video game.
No, but like that's VC.
Yeah.
Like that's insane.
Right.
So many talented players play this game. I mean, not even just like I guess I don't know. Some people I guess don't like the word talent, but I think skilled is probably a more broad term, but definitely like people that put a lot of time and effort into mastering their craft on the game, and I think that's what's awesome about speedrunning, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, you know, the comparison that you have between others. I think it's just about, I think especially with people that are trying to get the fastest time possible, they're trying to push the game to its limits, push themselves and push the game to its limits, and you know, that's what I think is beautiful about Ocarina of Time, is that, or just speedrunning in general, really, is pushing the game to its limits, and you know, optimizing. I love optimizing stuff personally. I play a lot of MMOs, so optimization is a big factor in those, especially when you're trying to play at a high level. And I think that's what I carried it over from this game. Other games as well, like Rocket League. Love gaming in general, but you see like optimization and strategy and just in consistency, and it's just really really cool to see, like, in a game where it doesn't really matter when you're like comparing yourself to other people, just comparing yourself to the previous version of yourself. You always grow in a game like this, and I mean, it's been such an honor to see people grow over time. And I mean, I've had people that taught me this game, Baker being one of them, and Dan as well, and passing on that knowledge to Thunder and seeing how good Thunder has gotten. It's just seeing, like, it's like just timeless. You know what I mean? That's what's beautiful about games like this and just a community like this. It's always timeless. It always just passed down and passed down generation to generation, and really really cool.
Yeah, I think what you said about like everything being like relative is so true, and it's like I appreciate like the what you've said, like, but it's funny because like I've done almost like 1,000 runs of the newer Ganonless route, right? Like with the new trick, and it was so crazy how like I saw TKC do 3 or 4 runs and like significantly destroy my time. Like,
Oh yeah,
it really is relative, and there are like levels, like
yeah,
I think it's really good to have those top players to motivate you, but it's also like you also have to reflect and not. There's a way to compare, I think, right? There's a way to
right.
like study and like learn, but there's also a way to like get in your head,
Yeah, I mean, if you let it get in your head, like, you're taking it personally, and you're saying like, hey, like, this person is, they're playing a certain kind of way, and they're doing some really crazy strats, and like, they came and they destroyed it. But you can also look and be like, this is what's possible, and this person put in so much time, and that is just so impressive. And you can take it as a point of like, I want to be there, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
have more motivation. So like, I think probably the best example of this that I've seen in recent years, within this category specifically, is, around the time that SRM was found and the category was renamed to Defeat Ganon No SRM. There was a time where I feel like really the only person that was really competing for world record, or at least close enough to it to where it was actually I think it was like 1650, I think it was around that time, was Richard. And then, later on, I think more people started to come back and really try and push it. And then Lawsuits comes out of nowhere. I mean, Lawsuits is, people know him as an incredible runner in other categories, but Lawsuits comes out of nowhere, just does Baba Hess, just starts doing Baba Hess in every run, which is ridiculous, by the way. Baba Hess, regardless if you have an adapter or not, that trick is incredibly difficult, incredibly precise, in multiple ways. Like, you have to get the Hess off the Baba, and then you have to cross the gap and still make it, all the way back around. And then after you do that, you have to do Waterfall Hess, which, I mean, it's not as hard as Baba Hess, but it's still, like, not necessarily that easy. Like, it's easier when you have practice. But yeah, just pulling out of nowhere and just destroying the category. I mean, and Torch coming back to compete with that was really really awesome to see. And I mean, just the shift in the category at the time was ridiculous, especially with triple slash clip, saving all that time on insta clip, getting rid of that, pain point of the run. Really, really awesome how this category has developed over time. Just like the difference where it just motivates people to see like, hey, this is being done, like, this is possible, even though this was considered like not RTA viable. Now this is RTA viable because people are doing it, and people are doing it well. And that's what's scary. That's how you know, like, a different caliber of what's possible. And
Yeah.
and that's what you're
So,
talking
like,
about, right?
what's almost as crazy as Baba Hess, honestly, is in Defeat Ganon is the ISG-less second phase Ganon that Torch and Lazute started doing.
Mhm.
I found that to be far more terrifying, honestly, than Baba Hess.
Yeah, it's the make or break point of the run. I think it's like, in terms of difficulty, it's not as difficult as Baba Hess, but in terms of like where you're at mentally at that point in the run on a pacer. Like, I mean, we've all, like, if you speedrun this game and you're on PB pace, we've all experienced the flubs at Ganon.